This is the Italian Citizenship Podcast, hosted by Marco Permunian and Rafael Di Furia.
Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, presented by ItaliancitizenshipAssistance.com. Of course, we are back at it again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I am doing great, thank you. And in this episode of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, we wanted to talk a little bit about a recent ruling that was made by the Italian Constitutional Court regarding language requirements for getting Italian citizenship. And so rather than my jumping into it, Marco, can you tell us what has changed or what might be changing regarding the language requirement for Italian citizenship through naturalization?
On March the 7th, the Constitutional Court issued a ruling number 25, with which they basically established that the necessity to speak Italian and to pass a language test to be able to acquire citizenship through marriage or residency, as established by the so-called security decree from 2018, doesn't have to apply to people that are in an objective situation that prevents them from being able to pass the language test. In other words, if you are somebody who is older or have some serious illness or have certain disabilities that prevent you from being able to pass the language test or learn the language, you can still apply for citizenship through marriage or through residency, even if in 2018 the government passed a law that established that everybody who's looking to apply for citizenship through marriage or through residency needs to pass a language test. So basically, the Constitutional Court simply stated that it's against the Italian Constitution to not make any distinction between people who are in a position to be able to pass the language test and people who are in an objective position that does not allow them to pass the language test. And these people, like I just said, people with disabilities, for example, or people that are older, they don't need to pass the test. They can still apply for citizenship through marriage. So that is a very important decision that, of course, makes a lot of sense and that allows these kind of people that are in these categories to be able to apply for citizenship through marriage and through residency. In the ruling from the Constitutional Court, the judges have established further that it doesn't necessarily mean that these people that fall in these categories are not integrated if they don't speak the language, because they are in an objective situation that prevents them from being able to learn the language or pass the test because of illnesses, disabilities, or advanced age. Now, before we go any further, let's keep in mind that speaking Italian is not required when seeking Italian citizenship by descent. So if you're looking to apply for citizenship by descent, it is not required for anybody to pass any language test. The language test was introduced in 2018 by the Italian government only for people who want to apply for citizenship through marriage or through residency.
Well, Marco, this is all very interesting. And something I'm just curious about is if this ruling mentioned specifically what categories of people or what category of people would be exempt from this necessity of having a language certificate.
So the rulings makes specific reference to three major categories. And these are people that are old, so advanced age, people that are ill, and people that have disabilities. And so I would assume that it applies to physical and mental disabilities. And the disability needs to be certified by a health institution. And also the ruling is very short, but at the same time, straight to the point. And it makes reference to the principle that is set in the Italian Constitution of the equality. Everybody needs to be equally treated. And the principle doesn't need to be applied blindly. Like, it can't be that everybody is just equal in the eyes of the law. But there are certain categories that cannot be treated as everybody else, meaning they need to be treated not the same as everybody else in order for the principle of equality set by the Italian Constitution to be respected. And this means that people that are in these categories need to have a preferential treatment, meaning They are not obligated to speak Italian to pass a language test in order to be able to acquire Italian citizenship through marriage or residency. They need to be treated differently in order for the principle of equality that is set by the Italian Constitution to be respected. So that is the line of reasoning that the Constitutional Court follows in their decision. And their decision, like I said, is pretty short. It does list the categories that are exempt from the language test, and it does talk about the principle of equality and the fact that nobody should be forced to do the impossible, so to speak. So nobody should be in a position to do something that they can objectively not do, because that is against the principle of equality that is set in the Italian Constitution.
It's very interesting you mentioned about this this principle of equality under the Italian Constitution, and I know that this can apply to many different things in many different ways across the board. Just living life in Italy, but something going off in a different direction and going back to what you were saying before regarding advanced age. Is there a specific definition in Italy or within the Italian law or within what they're speaking about regarding what advanced age might mean?
As I mentioned before, the ruling was quite vague on purpose because these type of rulings basically force the legislator to either amend or integrate the law. So there are different categories of rulings from the Constitutional Court, some rulings that don't require further actions and some rulings that do require further action. And this is one of those rulings that will require the legislator to take action and amend the law or integrate the law, because the law will need to clarify, for example, like you just mentioned, what is the age, the threshold that basically exempts people from needing to take the language test. Or, for example, what type of illnesses or conditions that are affecting people allow them to be exempt from needing to take the language test. So there are things that need to be determined by the legislature, and they will probably take action in the foreseeable future. But the ruling itself from the Constitutional Court, because it's one of those types of rulings that I just mentioned, didn't need to give those details, which again will need to be decided by the legislature.
Well, thank you so much, Marco, for getting into all of that. And a quick question here. I know recently in Italy, what's been happening is that there's been a lot of talk about the acquisition of citizenship, for example, the referendum that's coming up. So the timing of this makes sense why it's a topic of discussion within the Constitutional Court. But I'm just curious about, when was it that this came into effect, this B1 language certificate?
In 2018, with the so-called security decree, the government introduced this requirement forcing basically everybody who was interested in applying for Italian citizenship through marriage and citizenship through residency to learn the language and pass the test. The level that the law requires is lower intermediate, so you don't have to speak Italian at an advanced level. At the same time, if you are a beginner, that is probably not going to be enough. The test can be taken in Italy or abroad, but it needs to be carried out within a language school that is officially recognized by the Italian government. So, in short, not every language school is authorized by the Italian government to offer these kind of tests. You need to go in a place that is authorized by the Italian government. And I think it's important to state that you have to take the language test in order to be able to apply for citizenship by residency or marriage, unless you fall within one of those categories that were taken into consideration by the Constitutional Court. But you are not required to attend classes or courses or lessons. So if you can learn the language by yourself, that is sufficient for you to be able to take the test. You don't have to attend mandatory classes. That it was not a requirement established by the law of 2018. And also, like I mentioned before, you can take the language test abroad because residing in Italy is not a requirement to be able to apply for citizenship through marriage. Of course, if you are looking into applying for citizenship through residency, you will have to be a resident of Italy because residing in Italy is the most important requirement to be able to apply for citizenship through residency. But when it comes to citizenship through marriage, so if you are thinking of applying for citizenship based on you being married to an Italian citizen, you can do so from abroad. And there's actually no need for you to ever reside in Italy. And Italy is one of the few countries in Europe that allows you to be able to apply for citizenship through marriage without ever moving to Italy or living in Italy in any way. Of course, it's different if you're looking into applying for a residency permit for spouses, which is different from citizenship. In that case, you need to live in Italy and move to Italy with your Italian spouse to obtain the residency permit. But at the same time, you don't have to pass any language test in order to obtain the spousal permit.
Well, Marco, this has been a very interesting episode, and thank you so much for making yourself available again for this episode of the Italian Citizenship Podcast. But of course, if anybody is needing help to get Italian citizenship, whether it's through descent, marriage, or residency, how can they get in contact with you and your team?
People can contact us through our website, Italiancitizenshipassistance.com, or give us a call. Our phone number is on our website.
Absolutely fantastic. And of course, if you're needing any more information about Italian citizenship, how to get Italian citizenship, or even real estate, be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel for the Italian Citizenship Podcast, the Italian Real Estate Podcast, as well as Ask the Italian Lawyer. And also make sure that you're subscribed to the audio-only versions of these podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. But of course, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, that means you're automatically subscribed to all of these projects in just one place. But of course, we have been here again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. I'm Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we will see you all next time. Later.
Thank you.